Today we're talking about couverture chocolate. We use a 56% bittersweet couverture from República del Cacao in Ecuador. It's actually what we sell on our website and in stores as the bittersweet chocolate couverture. What is couverture? Couverture is just chocolate. There's nothing weird about it. There's no special ingredient in it. It is what chocolate should be, which is cocoa beans, both the cocoa mass, which are the solids, and the cocoa butter, which is the fat, and sugar. A little bit of soy lecithin or sunflower lecithin. A lot of makers are moving over towards sunflower lecithin. Lecithin is used as an emulsifier because there's so many soy allergies. A lot of manufacturers are moving over to sunflower. It helps the chocolate stay together. Sometimes they also use vanilla. I'm not sure if this one has vanilla or not, but it's on the ingredients label, so I knew at some point. The difference between couverture and regular, like say our 71% bittersweet, is that couverture has a little added cocoa butter. And the reason why is because when you melt it, it is more fluid at a lower temperature. And that helps when you are, say, dipping something in chocolate, like a strawberry or a truffle center, a piece of ganache that you want to cover in chocolate. It also helps if you're using a chocolate mold. The chocolate is very workable, it's very fluid. If you use something else, like say our 71% bittersweet for dipping or molding, you're gonna have a more viscous chocolate. It's a little bit more difficult to work with. You don't get that really thin layer of chocolate on whatever it is you're dipping in it, and also molding is a little bit more difficult. Couverture is really what confectioners use as their working chocolate, their finished chocolate, anytime they're making chocolate decorations, or like I said, dipping anything in chocolate, they're gonna be using a chocolate that has a little extra cocoa butter in it. This is not a chocolate you normally find on the shelves of your downtown grocery store. This is a specialty product. We decided to make it available to our customers because people ask for it. So like I said, this is the same stuff we use at Ragged Coast Chocolates to line our molds, to enrobe our centers, from our caramels to our truffles to pretzels, etc., etc. And this is the chocolate we're gonna be working with today. How do you melt chocolate? I asked a bunch of people on Facebook the other day if they could give me their ideas about what they wanted to learn about chocolate in these videos. And most people want to know how to temper chocolate. Everybody wants to know how to temper chocolate. So we're gonna get into that. But before you get into tempering, you really need to know how to properly melt chocolate. I'm starting with 3 pounds of chocolate, which I know sounds like a bunch of chocolate. You're gonna start with probably whatever's in the bag that you just bought, whether it's our chocolates or somebody else's chocolate. Probably you're gonna start with a half a pound or 12 ounces, and that's fine. I'm starting with a large amount of chocolate today. So this is already in disc form. If you are buying a big bar of chocolate or several bars of chocolate, you're gonna wanna chop it up before you start melting. Luckily, these days, a lot of baking chocolate comes in this sort of Calais. People call them Calais or discs or bevs. Every brand has its own special name for it. I call them discs. This is different. Like I said, this is our 56%. These are not chocolate chips. I don't recommend using chocolate chips like Nestle, Hershey, or whatever you find in the grocery store, because those have a different formulation. Usually they have an additive in them that shouldn't be there because it helps them keep their nice little perky shape in a chocolate chip cookie. That's not what we're going for, and so we don't have that additive in this chocolate. This is just chocolate with a little added cocoa butter. So definitely look at the ingredients label of the chocolate that you're working with, especially if you're not using the one I'm demonstrating here today. Got your bowl of chocolate, you want it in a nice heat-proof bowl, metal, and something that isn't gonna hold the heat. I wouldn't use cast iron or clay or any kind of ceramic. A nice thin heat-proof metal bowl is really all you need. If you have a double boiler, you can use a double boiler, but the beauty of using a bowl is that you can make it as large or as small as you need it to be. Next thing you need is a pot of hot water. So what I recommend is bring a large saucepan of water to a boil on the stove. Take it off, let it sit for 1 full minute, which I've done. So I'm gonna bring this water over here and then put your chocolate right on top of the water. Don't want the bottom surface of the bowl touching the water. You want it over it so that it's just getting the heat from the steam. And that's gonna take a few minutes to melt. We'll be back when it's done. So we've had our bowl of chocolate over the hot water for a few minutes now, and I just wanna give you a few tips about working with chocolate in general. One is, we talked about using a metal bowl. I also recommend using a metal bowl with rim like this. And the reason why is if it was a straight-sided bowl, what might happen is if some steam comes up the side of the bowl from the hot water, it might drip down into your melted chocolate. And what that does is not good, basically. Water and chocolate, when they mix together in certain amounts, does something called seizing. So if we put a drop of water in this nice bowl of melted chocolate, it would clump up into a big dry ball and be completely unworkable for whatever you're using your melted chocolate for. We can use it for something else, we just won't be able to use it as melted chocolate to dip things in. So try and keep water out of your chocolate. One good way to do that is using a bowl with a rim. Another good way to keep water out of your chocolate is to have a towel around so that when you take this bowl off the hot water, you're just gonna wipe its little bottom so that it's nice and dry and you don't have any chance of getting water into the chocolate. Don't mix water with your chocolate. Okay, like I said, this has been sitting over the hot water for a few minutes. There's still a few little chunks in there, so we're just gonna stir that to mix them in and kind of get a uniform heat. Is there an ideal working temperature for melted chocolate? Yeah, you don't want to get it too hot. That's why we melt it over hot water rather than over direct heat. If we melted chocolate over direct heat, it would burn and then you wouldn't be able to work with it. That's why we use this sort of passive heat method. And we don't want to heat dark chocolate over, I'd say between 120 and 125. Sometimes you can get up to 130, especially if there's some added cocoa butter to it. We can probably bring this up to 130 for a working temperature, but you don't want to go beyond that. Is it necessary to know the temperature of your melted chocolate if you're not moving on to tempering? It is not. Whenever it is at a nice fluidity for whatever you want to do with it, you can take it off the hot water or leave it on the hot water if you want and start working with it. When your chocolate's nice and melted like this, you can make bark with it, dip fruit in it like strawberries or cherries. You can drizzle it over cakes, over cookies or whatever. Just remember that it's probably not gonna harden very quickly because it's not in temper. And we'll get into that in another video, but whatever you dip in here will need to set in a cold room or the refrigerator for it to harden. So just keep that in mind. And sometimes, sometimes it won't be super shiny. If you really want it to have that nice finish, you'll definitely have to move on to tempering. But for basic things, if you're serving a dessert for a dinner party that you want to have a nice chocolate dipped strawberry next to the plate, this is perfect for that. You just keep them in the refrigerator until right before you serve your dessert and then bring them out and put them on the plate. That's your melted chocolate. Like I said, when you take it off the hot water, the bottom of your chocolate is gonna be wet. So go ahead and dry that off before you set it down on your counter. All right, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and comment below the video. If you enjoyed this video or if you wanna see more videos like this, definitely subscribe to our channel and like this video. It makes a big difference. Thanks, signing off. We'll see you next time.